Okay, hello. I'm just messing around with some sculpting, and I thought, whether it's a 10-minute stream or not, because I might be going in a minute, I just thought I would sit down on a stream while I mess around with some of these sculpting settings. I've not really, some of the tools here that I've not really practiced, so I might just be messing around a little bit. I think I had a reference right here. Sort of replicate that sort of style for a bit of fun, a little bit of rock sculpting. See how it goes. Thinking where the best place to put this reference is. Suppose a little bit thinner. Can I pop out the chat? Pop out the chat. That's better. Right then, yep. So one of the things I was experimenting with is I watched a few tutorials, and we've got some extra settings on the brushes to try and create some different kind of scrape brushes. So it looks like I've not named these, but that one is TSB, which is Trim Smooth Border. And just the way that it reacts is just a little bit different than okay, I'm getting the Wacom settings are wrong. Setting up Wacom settings for a tablet in Blender, you just need to say on the Blender application that the middle mouse click is your front click on the mouse, and then I think double click's fine there. I don't really use that anyway, yeah, but double click should be fine, or it should be, I suppose, if I don't really use it anyway, then double click's not that useful. So you can really assign that to anything. It'd be pretty cool if I could assign it to Shift Spacebar would be pretty good. So I'm not sure whether I can do that. Be nice if I could, but I don't think I can, so I'm just going to ignore it. Keep it as middle click so that I can just look around. And really, if I just undo what I did here, which apparently I've not done anything, I'm pretty sure I just did that now, so undoing's being a bit slow. This is Blender 3. So Trim Smooth Borders working. Hopefully, the idea with Trim Smooth Border is that it will, so that doesn't seem like it's actually doing that. Change it. That's more like what I'd expect, I think, from a Trim Smooth Border. And I'm using a hexagon in the mask try and get things a little bit better. So if you Google trim smooth border in Blender in YouTube, I say Google in YouTube, but if you search that in YouTube, then you get a tutorial that says how to make trim smooth border in YouTube. Oh my god, in Blender. And basically, I mean, the setting changes here are just are really just that one setting. It really helps create sharp edges, just like these between these two, and then also plain trim there is pretty good. I'm just going to use it to create sharper edges than I would have had if I were doing it in some other way. But hopefully not quite so modeled. Obviously it needs to be sculpted and not looking like it's been you know, like a lot of these ones are clearly modeled, so hopefully just changing it a little bit will get rid of that geometric sort of shape to it. Not quite sure this is reacting how I want, but it's a bit of practice anyway, so I'm imagining that on this first piece, I'm imagining that I'm going to have to just duplicate it and start again on this piece. But I'll slowly, you know, I'll move on to the next one and then the next one. And I'm assuming it'll get better over time. Let's change it just to normal briefly, see if that is creating a slightly better inset. And I don't mind going through and doing this particular piece, like where I'm not going to go over the whole thing in a very in the order that you'd kind of want to if you weren't learning, because I'm just doing like a bit of a learning to sculpt rock, stylized rock sort of situation. I'm not bothered about making sure that the entire sculpt is uniform. So like I'd want to maybe develop this one a little bit and then move on to the next one before developing this one too much, so that I'm sort of uniformly making sure that everything's in the right sort of zone, like that I'm not spending too much time on this one and then having to go through and match that quality everywhere else, just sort of bringing the resolution higher across every single shape. Right now I'm just bothered about sort of getting this one looking a little bit more like how I want it. Might just move some of this. Right now I'm just, I'm just going to be doing sculpting, so I'm not really going to do any retopology or texturing. But if I do get around to the texturing phase, then I'll probably do an update to one of my old videos, which was like creating more of a procedural substance material. If I finish this piece, if I'm like if the sculpting goes well, then I'll definitely move on to turning it into a game ready asset for sure. Like I want to create a low poly sculpt that has some stylized textures on it and stuff, just for a bit of fun. So I might take it that far, but right now, like I don't think that what I'm sculpting here is looking very good. So I don't think my sculpting's going very well. In which case, I'm mainly just bothered about getting this, focusing on this part first. I'm not bothered about sculpting retopology and texturing at the moment. Because looking at this, like getting those sharp edges, it's quite minimal. Like I've already gone too far. Like mine maybe more like this section down here and down here where it's got quite a lot of parts to it, but really it's quite minimal. Um, so what I've already started doing here is I guess I need to really flatten off some of these and bring it back to being that more geometric. What I'm not using very much is the reverse function. That might help quite a lot. So if I hold control while I'm doing this, and I can create some of those ledges like that. If I do it occasionally, I want to hit Control R and just retopologize this. That does move, that does make my edges a lot softer. We're just testing, turning some of this stuff off to see what it does. I'm not really sure what that plane trim does in the grand scheme of things. And if both of these are on, then it should act a lot more like a slice across the surface like that. So you can create some, so it's just going to follow it as a plane and on the normal, and that's actually pretty good if you can get the right angles. That's going to help really make some of that a lot sharper. But what I'm going to test, really the main bit that I struggle with on this is if I retopologize, I do struggle with making sure that this remains sharp. So I'm thinking to make it remain sharp, I'm thinking a mesh filter will sharpen, might just solve the whole thing. Find out. Yes, I've already got it on. Sharpen that way is not doing it. Sharpen this way. And that seems to be smoothing rather than sharpening. There's something going on there that's not very good. So seems like so going to sort of flatten this top quite a lot. So what's happening here is, I mean, it's good, but it's stopped me from flattening that out. The reason it does that is because I've got the normal radius. So normal radius somewhere. Mine's quite low. If I turn that up, then it should, I think. Apparently not. The normal radius just is how much of a trim I'm applying, really. So if I turn that off, let's have a little look. And that's just how it is. It's not really filling in very much. Oh, the normal radius went way up. Turn that way back up. So again, really, I'm just practicing. If you do it, if anyone is watching and they have questions about anything else, like I can swap over to different things briefly, but this is mainly what I'm doing. And that is what I want. I don't want like the softness that was there a minute ago. I definitely want it to be sharp like this, but what I'm thinking I'm going to have to do in the end is still going to end up having to join this together, but maybe not. Fill that in. I don't actually export most of my stuff into Unreal. I do have Marmoset as well that I sometimes use, and Blender's really good. And I'm using Blender 3.0 right now, which has Cycles X, so that's very, very quick to render. And so let me just move my phone away from the mic. Sorry. And so, like, if I'm doing preview renders, then I'll render them in Blender. If I'm doing a full environment, like some of my latest work, then I'll be in Unreal. I like creating environments in Unreal, just because it's good to learn from my job. It's good to learn in general. If it was just pure personal work, then maybe then just rendering it in Blender and stuff is fine. Eevee is pretty good. It's if I want that sort of, but yeah, Eevee's still not as good as Marmoset and stuff for a final render and Unreal. It's still better doing a final render out externally if you're doing it in real time. That is, if you want an offline render with cycles, then that's a really good option, obviously. But Eevee for me is just like a preview. It's not a final render situation. So I should have one of these. If I change this to just change the name of it somehow, like just a normal trim dynamic, hopefully. This should just act like a trim dynamic. Don't particularly want to do it there. Kind of just want to add a little bit here. Swap back to that one and straighten that off. Seems to be how the other one is. I'm not. Yeah, I do have texture on. Causing issues. So what I might do to try and get a better idea of the shape on this, because I'm not actually sure what I'm in sculpt mode, but I'm not actually viewing it with a proper sculpt texture. Actually, so this right here is kind of the ideal situation. I want more of this. Move the surface just to get myself some. Room. I just want to. If anyone does sculpt in Blender, if anyone's watching, because I haven't got the view account on, if I'm doing anything that could be totally improved with a different tool, then that would be good to know. I like when the first time I saw the trim brush, this one. First time I saw this brush, I was like, wow, that's doing like an excellent job of smoothing things out, but I've never had a situation where it was fully needed. It is like a pinch on those edges. I suppose it is working pretty well at the moment, but I find that it warps the shape too much. Like it pinches it, but it's like it pinches it like out of clay, like bringing two thumbs together, rather than what some of this does, which totally flattens off that. So I much prefer the harsher geometric shape of this than using a trim. That other one doesn't give as hard of edges, and also it gives quite wobbly edges. That other tool, as far as I know. This all the way up. So suppose that's kind of creating the shapes that I want, but I'm not too sure overall whether it's totally getting there. Not sure whether I created myself a square alpha as well. And that's actually got some beveled edges, so let's see if I can open a different image. Yeah, I've got a hard square edge one, maybe that's actually going to do it better. So I think some of this is looking pretty good. I'm not too sure compared to like the reference. It's not quite as minimal as the reference. Like I need to just like make sure that I'm not going too crazy with it. And I really do want to apply another retopology just to make sure that I can smooth out some of this stuff. But that does come at the cost of smoothing the edges out again. So I'm going to test a mesh filter again just to see if I can. Let's go gravity. Oh no, I'm doing a cloth filler. Enhance details. Isn't going to do what I want. Sharpen didn't work a minute ago. Let's look again. I guess you can always do the opposite of sharpen, sort of an inflate, deflate sort of situation. Sharpen. I suppose it does actually. Still looks a lot like smoothing, but actually it does give it a nice, just kind of undoing to compare it. Gives it a nice little look to it, but I'm not sure that's quite what I want. So I'm going to keep going over it. Let's turn some of these off, see what the difference is. Now this tool again, see if there's any settings here. I'm not too sure. Don't think so. So yeah, that's just not, that just like the way that pulls edges in, it creates those, like if I try and do it like it does sharpen that edge, but it's like it's pushing down as well, but I don't want those other planes to push. It's like it's kind of, it's clear how it works, but the planes don't seem to be staying close to the edge in the same way. So maybe just a pinch. Just going to go around and pinch the edges, which is going to pull things around quite a bit. Hopefully not too much. So I just need to find the best trim tool that can sharpen that edge up. No, that's not the one. That's not doing it. With the strength. Guess it's the strength that I've got things set as not very good. So let's turn up to full, see what happens. Oops. Flatten tool. Basically the same as doing this in reverse, so I'm not going to bother with that. Maybe I need to take this up an extra resolution to find out how many polys I've got on the moment. $20,000, so maybe I should stop make it a little bit more performant. I should probably add a multi-res. Just give it one sub. Now it's going to have a crazy amount of polys. Oops. Oh no. Okay, so undoing that was actually very, very slow. Probably because I've got way too many polys now. Not liking it, but they've done a lot to improve sculpting. Like, this is working with a few thousand polys, a few million polys, 3 million. Oh. I've been doing it for a while. The fact that anyone can just sort of stop by, or like the fact that I can stream and people and someone like you shows up, is just good enough, really. But thank you. It is, I kind of want to be one of those channels that you do just because I don't put a lot of effort into editing and so on. It's one of those channels where it's like you just sort of find it when you need it, and in those really specific scenarios where you need help with something that I've made a video on, then that's sort of like the perfect zone to be in, really. Like, you find what you need, and not like I'm not making the same tutorial as everyone else, sort of thing. Increased resolution is good. What I think Blender isn't doing is it's not the not changing the angle of the, I don't know whether I want the texture to follow the plane. Rake. think raking might be what I want. No, maybe not. Random though might be good. Oh, that's pretty good actually for deep or it's pretty good for surface detail. That's clearly not what's wanted. I guess it just needs to be that predictable side angle. And it becomes a bit obvious that it's yeah, it's not that what that did ruin me for a while is the tutorials by CG Matter and Ian Hubert are really good, but all of my comments for a while Ian Hubert and CG Matter were going for it, like a lot of my comments were just like learn how to edit, this is too slow, all this sort of stuff. When my intention is pretty much just to chat and talk about a lot of 3D stuff and how to do things, and I'm learning stuff, so it's just kind of like going through and doing things in a more casual way, which is there's a lot of channels like that out there that I watch. I can't remember any names off the top of my head, but I know a lot of there's like tutorials when you find them, and someone just does like an hour live stream on one subject. You can learn a lot more from that because the CG Matter and stuff is really and Ian Hubert. It's really entertaining videos, like very very entertaining, very educational, but also very hard to follow in the real world. In the real world scenario, you'd be pausing it a lot, and really, I've never followed any of it. I've watched them all. I've watched loads of them, but I've never actually sat down and thought, well, I need to copy this tutorial right now because it all gets sent to you. It's just like the speed at which it's more of an entertainment video than it is a tutorial. I find. I don't know whether anyone does follow them more than they just enjoy watching them if they're in the 3D community. The steps on this are pretty. Steps on my brush are pretty low, perhaps. I don't know if is there a smooth, like a plain smooth, like something that, because I've got smooth surface on already. But once you get to a lot of polygons, the surface smooth thing stops working apparently. I don't mind this, it's looking like it's quite made out of clay. Try and sort this out. There's quite a good tool here that if I smooth that, that's in fact there's a good tool here. If I change this so that we can see the polys somehow. If I display this in wireframe, I don't know if that's probably not displaying. I don't know if that is displaying the sculpt. Apparently it is. It's not that many polys then. It's not super dense. Killing my computer. Which reminds me I should change this. one of the mesh filters here, if I change that to topology smooth, surface smooth, killing it a little bit. Okay, well, it's not doing it, but if I go to relax, I think that's what I'm looking for. There we go. So the way the relax tool there just sort of slides the polygons, tries to distribute them evenly without getting rid of detail. So if I as an example, if I went crazy and, oh no, that's not crazy enough. If you did something like pulled this out all the way and it becomes crazy, might be a little bit too extreme. That can be quite hard to sculpt on. So then the relax tool that is going to try and move those polygons into a position where they are more square. Obviously, in a scenario like that, it's ruining the mesh. But in a scenario like this, it's giving me more polygons to smooth out. So I can try and get this looking good. Quite working. What I'm definitely learning here is like if I was trying to sculpt like a natural not stylized rock, then I'd most likely have then I wouldn't mind going a little bit more crazy with it because natural rocks are quite random, so I wouldn't have to like focus on making sure that things here aren't too random. I like that, but it's not working very well for me at the moment. That might work actually. Overall, again, it's that. Like that's, if I go down here and I start creating random bits like that, then that's getting a little bit more realistic. Whereas I still want these large surfaces. Thank you for the kind words. I'm just, yep, I'm just kind of casually streaming, so it's all good. Hope maybe more people will stop by. I'm not sure that that is going well, so if I turn it back to this, I should be able to remove it. Oops. Oops. Probably just too many. Let's see what auto smooth does. Auto smooth does actually solve a little bit of that, so I'll turn it on a little bit. Or is it causing me issues? Sorry, I keep putting my phone next to the mic here. Not sure if it comes through. Ruin the shape a little bit there. It's very difficult. Definitely still loads for me to learn sort of here on how to control stuff. I know it's all possible. It's just like still very difficult. Alright, that auto smooth is doing the work that it's meant to. It's just maybe doing it a little bit too much. Alright. Okay, well I kind of like the shapes. Again, it's very much, it's probably not really going in the right direction. Don't know whether I should have more like that. That might help. Fill that in. Create a bit of a sharper edge there. What I'd be tempted to create real quick is if I can, I would be tempted to bring this into object mode and do a quick shading thing, like adding, I could add an I'm not sure what half of this is, so I'm just going to double check. not really done shaders here, but what I want is just an object space gradient would be good. So in Unreal that would be location thing, but here I just need something like, again, I'm not Googling this, but I just need some kind of object info, like surely somewhere in here. Object info. Gradient, just can I add a gradient on a vector? That's working actually. That's kind of what I want. So let's have a look. Put that for a color ramp. And get a vector. Hmm. Working how I would expect. Vector. Just whether I can change this to a. Clearly the gradient's going left to right now, so the vector's wrong. So I want to change that to a. Something else. Okay. It's like kind of got there. I just maybe do it manually. I not really what I wanted to do, but if it works, it works. So it's doing an X forward vector. I don't know how to change the vector from an X to a Z, but I can figure that out. Otherwise I'll have to grab all of these and rotate their vectors. I'll just hide that one momentarily. And I'm just going to do it. But that's not really what I want to do at the moment. Don't know what that does. Fine. So yeah, really just trying to figure out how to change that triangle, even though I fixed it. But I need to still probably be good to work out which one of these actually changes the angle. I would have thought clearly that is doing something. So it's x, this will be the x. Bring that to 0, 1. Nope, don't know if anyone's watching and maybe they'll know what I need. Maybe not. Definitely not. On white. Got grey, so that's just kind of we got what they do. You'd think. Any of these would just work. At least. Oh well, I've got the vector there. I'm going to ignore that now. I'm going to add a. Oops. I'm going to combine them. Can I just put that in there? No, that's not a good idea. Can I do a darken? Yes. Max darken. To actually turn ambient occlusion on, and that'll work. Distance up. Samples here to 32 probably. If that changes anything. Distance here could be more improved. Really, I'm just using up. The only reason I'm doing this is to give it some, just so I can see what I'm doing. See what it would look like if it had a texture on it. Because this is all I'm going to do when it's actually textured. Add a gradient and all this sort of stuff. Just wondering whether I can. Don't want to dot these. I'm going to get the normals. Want the normals of the object. None of that's going to do anything. I just want the. I'm making a. I'm just trying to copy this sort of stylized rock right here. So I'm just kind of messing around. But I thought I'd quickly just throw on this, and what I want now is to get the top surface normal and subtract that from the rest of it. So ideally I just want, here we go. Okay, this is giving me some of the information that I want. So I want to mask, nope, separate, that'll do it. And I want to get the blue, and I want to change that somehow. I'm not really sure what the math nodes on this are called. Just mix, is it? So what I'm doing right now is, like, while I sculpt this, I can change between Eevee and I'd be able to change between Eevee and my sculpting mode and just see how it holds up when it's got a texture on it, you know, or not a full texture, but like just a little bit. I guess mix RGB is what I want, I suppose. Not really what I want, but what I want. Is it just like a math node? Yeah. And you can see how much I've not really used. Like this everything I'm applying here is from like Substance and Unreal. I've not really used these nodes, but everything's got the same. All the same nodes exist across like all software. Yeah, no, all this knowledge I'm applying here is just from like from Unreal. So like this one's called an add node, or I typed in math, and that's how I'm getting all this stuff. And that's like quite a confusing way to do it. Although I suppose it is better than Unreal in some ways, where there's a different node for every single thing. Like if I want to do a multiply, I've got to create a new multiply node. And if I change my mind, I've got to delete it and plug it back in, which is kind of annoying. Right now, if I wanted to divide or multiply, I just do the drop down, which I suppose is convenient. What I want is some kind of power node, and if I plug that in, and I turn this up to like 2, and that should be giving me what I want. 3, 10. So it's removing it from the sides. So the power is, and I'll put a clamp on it actually, see what that does. So now I'm trying to just get those top surfaces. And what I'll do is, for this, I will then also, is that a math node? That's a mix node. So I guess I don't really want them to, yeah, in fact, mix is fine on them, but then math here would be to subtract that one from that one. I haven't even got the node wrangler on or anything like that. This is literally just default. Clamp that. And what I don't want is actually, I want to add it and clamp. And now when I plug that in, I think I'm getting the sort of effect that I want. And just to make sure, can color pick this from my reference, which I'm not sure Blender's going to let me do. Apparently not. So I'm going to save that image. Selected image to sort out my selected image, and then now I should be able to go to so what I want to do here is add a viewer, I think. Can I add a viewer? Just want to get to, don't want to add it to the scene. Oh yeah, just open it here. There we go. That'll do it. So now Blender will let me extract instead of that being black, I'll take that. Instead of that being white, I will take that one. Not quite right. So I'm going to do that between those two. And then on this one, so then over here, rather than adding that like that, I'll just ideally I want to lerp these. It's not really coming through particularly well. Like the colours just aren't. And again, what I'm doing right now is just kind of fun and pointless. But I suppose it's, you know, it's starting to get the look to it. Like that looks kind of nice with these, with the gradient and stuff, even though it's not quite what I'm. Definitely not as vibrant as that, because I think still getting that specular on it, which I've just turned it all off. Okay, I mean, and then the best thing about sort of we should save this as well. It's actually looking quite different here than how it did just look then. Do I not have... Oh, so if I go to object mode, oh, well that'd be... I was previewing it on like my old school. Now, looking pretty good. And doing that sort of thing is what I want pretty much. Stop mode again, it is lagging a lot. I don't know whether it's affecting my stream, but it is lagging. Right. I'm going to end the stream soonish because I've been on for like a little bit. But it's been some good practice on this asset. I will continue. Oh, that's super harsh. Turn this back to normal. think that's probably as far as I want to go on this. Not like perfect everywhere, but once it's in rendered view, oops. I think that would look pretty cool when it's when it loads. I think this will look pretty good when it if I sculpted the whole thing and had this procedural material on it, it'd be pretty good. Maybe an example of what that could look like is to create a dummy one. Finder is struggling a little bit, but collection 2, turn off everything else, and then just see if I can instance this. Blender isn't enjoying that. So ideally I'll turn this off and I'll see if Blender likes it a little bit better. On the origins only, so that's why that's being weird. Okay. Scale them up. Just to like see what the intersection points would look like if the whole thing was made out of. So if I sculpted more and I had these like really obvious connection points, then the render would still look okay by the seams of things. There should really be some ambient occlusion there. I'm not sure. That's kind of how the procedural material would look. And if I can, without it breaking. Yeah, pretty cool. I'm going to delete these, and then I'm going to end stream. So that's it. Thanks for everyone that stopped by. I will maybe continue sculpting this if there's interest. I can continue sculpting it on stream if wanted. I'm going to get a little bit more into streaming maybe, you know, so be on and off. But that's it from me. Thanks for joining. And